The New South Wales government, as I mentioned, have decided that they want to get into a demerit point battle. They announced a scheme today that I don't really understand to reward well-behaved drivers if they get elected. Now, that comes just a day after the Labor Party released a plan. I talked about this last night with Peter Curry on the program. I think the Labor Party plan's a ripper. Drivers will have a demerit point removed from their licence in just 12 months if they drive for a year and don't incur any more points. Joining me in the studio is Shadow Roads Minister John Graham. It seems like guns drawn at dawn over demerit points. Did you think that this would happen?
Well, this has been the hottest issue of the election so far, and that has been a bit of a surprise. But I think the backdrop is, after the government removed warning signs a couple of years ago, so many people have been fined for the first time. Many of them are now at risk of losing their licence. This has been a much bigger issue than you ever could have predicted in an election campaign in Sydney and New South Wales.
And a lot of those people were fined when the signs went, and the NRMA, by the way, told me today that they warned the government what would happen, and the government ignored them. The signs will now go back on, but a lot of those fines would be minor infringements, would they not?
More than 621,000 fines for low-level speeding, less than 10 kilometres an hour. That's the huge amount. Revenue jumped from $4 million a year to more than $40 million a year. Incredible. But that's what's produced this community reaction. And that's the backdrop as we've put out this positive policy idea about one way to not just use the stick, but use the carrot as well to encourage good driver behaviour.
Well, your system is simple, and I can relate to this because I've clocked up a number of points from minor speeding, one-pointers, and I'm up high. But none of my points drop off for 3 years. That's the same as in New South Wales, that's in Victoria. But this scheme that the government announced today is incomprehensible. So they're suggesting that you'll actually be able to break the law in minor instances and not be fined.
Yeah, look, we think our scheme's a better scheme. We're calling on everyone to drive more safely. And if you drive safely over the 12-month trial, you get the chance to earn 1 point back. We think that's appropriate. The government scheme.
So you have to have no offences in that 12-month period?
No offences in the 12-month period.
So what happens now, if you get to the maximum points, you can actually opt, can't you? I know in Victoria you can do this, I presume in New South Wales as well. You can opt to take a year where you get no more offences and you can still keep driving.
There's a similar scheme in New South Wales. It's not exactly the same, but a similar scheme. So that's our scheme. All drivers have a chance to earn a point.
Because, John, what I do now, because I'm so near to the maximum, cruise control on every time, no matter where I am. I mean, even in a 40 zone, which drives me crazy, but so it's sensible.
The government scheme, in contrast, says, look, if you've previously been good, you can be bad and we'll waive the fine. Look, we're not convinced it'll be as effective. We don't want to rule it out. Look, any good ideas here are important, and for this reason. After applying the stick, 621,000 fines, record revenue, the road toll went up. So we actually have to have some new thinking. We're trying to bring some fresh ideas to the table. This positive idea, the carrot and the stick, incentives for safer driving. The government rejected that out of hand yesterday. They've now picked up the principle. Well, that's good. We'd like them to pick up our specific idea.
I mean, you described it, I think Chris Mintz described it this morning as the fastest U-turn in history. He's probably right.
World's fastest U-turn, but a welcome one. You know, good ideas,
but
regardless
it's not a good
of where
policy.
Regardless
Why
of where
don't they just copy your policy?
Yeah, well, that would have been much more welcome, and it's not too late to do that. It's going to be a long campaign. It's not too late to do that. I think about taxi drivers, truckies. One demerit point can make a huge difference. It could be the difference between having a job and losing your job. So that's why it's really been welcome. The feedback's been good to us. That's why we've backed this policy.
You may well win the election. You obviously think you will. If you do, you'll be Roads Minister in the Minns government. I'm going to talk later this hour about the state of country roads in New South Wales and how it's having a massive impact, particularly on grain producers trying to get grain in and out of country towns. You and I all saw what happened in Western New South Wales with those floods. How are you possibly going to be able to afford to fix all those roads, because a lot of them are in a big mess? Also in Sydney, not just in the bush.
Yeah, it's a real issue. Local government New South Wales called it a state of emergency for rural roads particularly. It's a big, big challenge. We know there was a backlog there already. The NRMA says nearly $2 billion. There's probably been that amount again of damage to our road network right across New South Wales. It's a big challenge. We'll be focused on that in the campaign.
I've been taking calls from people on radio where one of the problems is that the repair of a pothole is just a spray application of tar, and then once a big truck goes through there, it's just a pothole again.
I think there's some better ways that we can do that. That's part of the answer here, getting the right support to the right roads.
Yeah. And councils are going to need help.
They can't do this by themselves. I think we've really called on the government to deliver additional assistance to councils. They need the help. It's something we'll look at as well.
Great to see you. Thank you very much for coming into the studio.
Thank you.